Here we see a drunken Jack Kerouac on a 1968 episode of William F. Buckley's Firing Line. At this point, Kerouac only had about 7 months to live.
Now, Jack, Mr. Kerouac, what I want to ask is this. To what extent do you believe that the Beat generation is related to the hippies?
Oh,
what do they have in common? Was this an evolution from the one to the other?
They're just the older ones.
Yeah.
So I'm 46 years old. These kids are 18. It's the same movement, which is apparently some kind of Dionysian movement in late civilization, and which I did not intend any more than I suppose Dionysius did, or whatever his name was. But although I'm not Dionysius the Areopagite, I should have been.
Yeah, that's the point, yeah.
No, it's just a movement which is supposed to be licentious, but it isn't really.
Well, not licentious in what respect?
The hippies are good kids. They're better than the Beat. The Beats, see, Ginsberg and I, and, well, Ginsberg, boy. We're all in our 40s, and we started this, and the kids took it up and everything. But a lot of hoodlums, and communists jumped on our backs. Well, on my back, not his. Ferlinghetti jumped on my back and turned the idea that I had that the Beat generation was a generation of beatitude and pleasure in life and tenderness. But they called it in the papers Beat mutiny, Beat insurrection. Words I never used. Being a Catholic, I believe in order, tenderness, and piety.
Well, then your point was that a meeting, that a movement which you conceived as relatively pure has become ideologized and misanthropic and generally
a movement that was
objectionable.
No, a movement that was considered what?
Pure.
Yes, it was pure in my heart.
In this interview from 1994, Allen Ginsberg discusses Howl and performs his later poem, Father Death Blues.
Allen Ginsberg, you are America's best-known poet. You were a key figure of the Beat generation with Kerouac and Burroughs. Now the beard and the hair are trim. You wear a suit and a collar and a tie. Just brought out a new volume, Cosmopolitan Greetings. But is the real Allen Ginsberg still in there?
Though I'm a Buddhist, and I think the Buddhists would say there is no real permanent self in any case, but there are many appearances of self. So I'm certainly a Beat poet, and I'm certainly Jewish, and I'm certainly gay, and I'm certainly an American, and I'm certainly a practicing meditator, and I suppose a part of the counterculture in America, which is now under attack by the neoconservative theopolitical televangelists who are denouncing the McGovernick counterculture and threatening war on it. So I don't know if there is a real Allen Ginsberg any more than there might be a real Jeremy Isaacs.
It wasn't long before in your poems, in Howl, for example, you were able and willing to make explicit statements about your sexuality.
Yes.
Wasn't that very difficult in what was, after all, McCarthy's America?
Well, it would have been if I had intended it to be public, but to tell you the truth, and as I've said before, Howl was written sort of in despair at writing poetry. I figured I hadn't succeeded in writing anything interesting. And so I said, well, then I'll just writing for myself, and I'll forget about any idea of publishing poetry. And so I started writing, I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed my madness, and I went on to catalog a series of almost grotesque, ironic, mocking, serious, sincere, trompe-l'oeil psychologically or mythological gossip that I'd heard of. And when it got to my own got fucked in the ass by handsome sailors and screamed with joy, rather than screamed with pain or agony, I realized how funny it was, but I knew that my father would not want to read that. So from then on I knew I wouldn't be able to publish the poem. And so I was completely free to write anything I wanted. And if you don't show anybody, you can do anything you want. That's the funny part. Which is why the poem is good, because it was written for my own privacy. Later on, people saw the manuscript and liked it, and then I gave a reading in which I thought would be like a small, private, arty reading in a small art gallery with other poets, Kerouac and Gary Snyder, among others. And everybody liked the poem, so I said, well, I guess it's all right then. But then I still was hesitant to publish it because of I didn't want my father to read the gay, explicit imagery. But finally I sent it to him. And he wrote me back a very interesting letter, he, Louis Ginsberg, being a poet, saying, this is a great poem full of energy and exuberance, but do you need all those blue words? So I explained to him, well, the way it passed through my head, and he got used to it.
During a recreation of the Six Gallery reading on March 11th, 1956, in Berkeley, California, Philip Whalen can be heard reading from his poem, Sourdough Mountain Lookout.
Different thing, this is all about mountains, this trip. I always say I won't go back to the mountains. I'm too old and fat, and there are bugs and mean mules and pancakes every morning in the world, uprooting alder shoots in the rain. While Mr. Edward Wyman, 63, steams along the trail ahead of us all, moaning, my poor old feet ache, my back is tired, I got a stiff prick. Then I'm alone in a glass house on a ridge encircled by chiming mountains, with one sun roaring through the house all day, the others crashing through the glass all night, conscious even while sleeping. Morning fog in the southern gorge, gleaming foam restores the old sea level, the lakes.
Michael McClure was born in 1932 in Kansas. He attended schools in the Midwest, the Southwest, and in San Francisco, where he's lived since 1953. He is married and has a daughter. McClure is one of the poets identified as a member of the Beat generation and with what has been described as the San Francisco Renaissance. Michael McClure is an experimentalist and is written in many different styles and forms. In 1958, he wrote this about his work. I want a writing of the emotions, intellect, and physiology, the direct emotional statement from the body, from the organs, and from the energy of movement. A recent poem of McClure's derives from a line by Allen Ginsberg, The Roar of Life Insurance.
There's no telling where the heart sails when the business fails and the mind afloat as a drunken boat, dressed in meat and a flowered shirt, smiling through the clouds and dirt to a space beyond recall, to the rainbow at the end of the bright hall. And the roar of life insurance and the vampire neon toes and boots of snails' endurance dance upon the roads.
Michael McClure once wrote, poetry is a muscular principle. There is no logic but sequences of feelings. My viewpoint is egocentric. Self-dramatization is part of a means to belief and spirit.
I wanted to make poetry that was that didn't have images in the sense that Shelley called mimetic images, in the sense that where the image describes something in the real world, but in the sense where the sound of the poetry itself creates an image in the mind, in the body, in the muscles of the body, and it created a melody that was also an image that imprinted itself in the body physically. But it is a test, whether it does it, whether it truly does it. So it's an experiment, and an attempt to do it. And then I wanted to read them to animals. I suppose because there are simpler cousins.
Silence the eyes. Become the senses. Drive roar from the fresh repugnance. Thou whole, thou feeling creature, live not for others, but affect thyself from thy enhanced interior, believing what thou carries, thy trillionic multitude of gra, bushes, and silences. Oh, you are heavier and dimmer than you knew, and more solid and full of pleasure. Gra! Gra!
Corso talking about what it means to be a beat poet.
A poet's fate is by choice. You choose it. You got to know you're a poet. But you ain't going to get the financial rewards. You're going to get a lot of weight laid on you. They look at you as weird or something somehow. And I don't care your style, if your hair's long or short. Or you could get into the academy where it's stifled. Or you could see something new. And by seeing that something new that's here and nobody sees, and you illuminate others, then you got it made. So I'm happy being a poet, because I figured I saw something that no other people saw at the same time as Ginsey and Kerouac and Burroughs, and laid it down. And that's why they call the Beat Generation a phenomenon. Yeah. Right?
This is Diane DePrima reading her poem, April Fool Birthday Poem, for her grandpa, who was an anarchist, and that is the main theme of the poem.
This is a dedication to my book Revolutionary Letters, and it was written to my grandfather, who was an anarchist from Italy, from near Formia. And it's called April Fool Birthday Poem for Grandpa. Today is your birthday, and I have tried writing these things before. But now, in the gathering madness, I want to thank you for telling me what to expect, for pulling no punches back there in that scrubbed Bronx parlor. Thank you for honestly weeping in time to innumerable, heartbreaking Italian operas, for pulling my hair when I pulled the leaves off the trees, so I'd know how it feels. We are involved in it now, revolution, up to our knees, and the tide is rising. I embrace strangers on the street, filled with their love and mine, the love you told us had to come or we die, told them all in that Bronx park, me listening in spring Bronx dusk, breathing stars, so glorious to me, your white hair, your height, your fierce blue eyes, rare among Italians. I stood a ways off, looking up at you, my grandpa, people listened to.